learn? What am I missing? Not just what they're missing, what am I missing? And what can I learn from them in terms of the cross and the lynching tree?
Absolutely. With Dr. Cone, I think there is a echo of the patristic statement of the unassumed is the unhealed, where we see in Cone's theology, Christ isn't just some amorphous person, but he identifies with the particular suffering of the black community. When we think of the biblical motifs even of communion and how with the lynching tree, the prophetic pointing of what is that strange fruit that hangs from the tree. And we look at Christ and how Christ says, take of my body. I think there is this biblical motif that points to that strange fruit on the lynching tree, and how Christ identifies himself with our African brothers and sisters who were unjustly lynched. I think there's something to be said about the particularity of the suffering that Christ identifies with. It's not this amorphous experience. It's not this generalized human experience that Christ addresses, but Christ assumes a particular human experience.
In each situation, through the Spirit. In our context, your context, mine, others, because Christ, the eternal Word, becomes flesh. And it's, as you said, not amorphous, not without form. It's not formless. It's always particular. And I think of Uchimota Kanzo, the great Japanese figure, son of a samurai, late 19th, early 20th century figure who, in his critique of Western Christianity and missionary efforts, I think there are many good missionary efforts, but he was quite critical because he felt that what was being presented to Japan was an amorphous Christianity, a formless Christianity, whereas he said, no, what we're given often is a Western Christianity. And he says John Knox, the Apostle Paul, were not amorphous in how they engaged. It was always particularized, and we need to account for particular contexts. Leslie Newbegin said, there's no such thing as, a non-cultural or an unenculturated gospel. It's always enculturated. Jesus became Jewish man. He became a particular in time. And though he is the eternal Word, he becomes a particular of history. Logos and sarkos, in fleshed word in a particular context. Born of a woman, as Paul says, born in the fullness of time, under the law, born of a woman. And we need to account for that. And the Spirit of Pentecost contextualizes that to each of our situations as we account for Jesus in his own historic Jewish particularity and build those bridges through wisdom in the Spirit in the church community globally and here throughout history to our contextual situations wherever we may be found.
And that lends back to our opening analogy with Interstellar. It's that vast ecosystem, the interconnectedness of the particles and molecules. It's not this cold, efficient machine with replaceable cogs and parts. But because of Christ's particularity, there's an interconnectedness that we all share in and through Christ, and that our suffering or sense of profound loss or grief isn't generalized, but that we can empathize with one another, and that our theology should serve the movement towards empathy because of Christ. And I think that's profound, and we see that in Dr. Cone's theology, that it's accessible to all of us, though we may not experience the same sense of loss or persecution or oppression that the Black African community experience. We can share in unity because of Christ.
And it's quite striking. We talk about perspective, and we talk about context and communal context, and not speaking simply truth, but truth in context and in a meaningful manner, accounting for our own communal settings. And